lounging, son.
Welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name is Ryan, and it is my extreme honor and privilege to introduce Rob Liefeld to the show. Welcome, dude.
Hey, what's up? How you doing? Good to see you. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you too, man. So, I mean, the reason we're talking today, I mean, creator of Deadpool, X-Force, Cable, all that stuff, Prophet, Youngblood, all the Image stuff, but we're here to talk today about the 30th anniversary, the X-Force Killshot special. So I just, so many anniversaries over the last couple of years for you with all the, all the Marvel stuff. How does it feel, like just creation after creation, and now finally the team up is celebrating the anniversary?
I'm going to tell you that I love it because it makes me feel so young, and it takes me back the entire 30 years. And it was a crazy time in comics. A guy, my good buddy Jeff Loeb, he told me just a couple weeks back, he said, your characters have never let you down. They've always showed up for you. And I said, that's how I feel. That's how I feel too. And that's why you understand. I go back and I look at this book celebrating 30 years, and I sit there and I go, what was the impetus for all of this? And one, I love Wolverine. It was in my youth that Wolverine was made, Electro was made, Beta Ray Bill, so I saw creators make stuff that enhanced their books. And I just remember reading if you make a character for Marvel, you will get equity in this character. That was the contracts they were handing out in the late 80s. And I figured well, one of these is going to work. I'll take a chance, maybe plant some seeds, see if some trees grow. And honestly, I feel like I have a forest. And I'm very proud of my forest. And so to get back, somebody else asked me, here's the deal. I don't feel like I ever leave these characters because of the situation that I'm in a lifelong contract with Marvel contract for every one of these characters. So I'm part of the Marvel family. So sometimes it's more interactive than others, right? Mm-hmm. But the idea that we could celebrate this and do this, make this happen, both Deadpool's 30th, X-Force's 30th, was just very special to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you talk about the characters that are created in the 70s. I'm a kid of the 90s, so these characters are those to me, so they've always had a special place in my heart, Deadpool being one of my favorite characters. I love what you did for, Deadpool's 30th. You did all those covers and still got some more coming out. Deadpool, you did a story in the 30th anniversary, but why do a one shot? Why tell a complete story as opposed to doing something else in terms of celebrating?
So Marvel had contacted me about contributing to the Deadpool 30th. Mm-hmm. And of course I said to them, well, what about X-Force? I feel like that can't go uncelebrated. That's a big milestone. That's the number 2 best-selling comic of all time. And they literally were like, Rob, that's a great idea. Let's make that happen. But it wasn't on the schedule for 2021. So, as soon as I kind of asserted it in January, this is why it's out in November. Okay. I mean, we made it. It was important to get it on the calendar. I didn't want to celebrate 30 years in the 31st year. So I just, am very grateful that Cebulski, everybody involved were like, yeah, let's do this. And look, I got to be honest, CB was like, you know what, it really wasn't on our radar as much. And yet once I kind of brought the focus to it, and I'll tell you why a one-shot. I mean, I would have done a complete one-shot. Cable's 30th was a year ago. He's about to enter his 32nd because his 30th, it's his 31st right now. So, I mean, look, I love telling stories with these characters. No one is ever going to love the characters more than the guy that creates them, period, end of story, okay? It's not even possible. You're not going to, characters came from my notebooks, my sketchbooks, and so once they cleared and gave me, 30 pages, of which I asked to turn into 33 pages, and they were totally fine with that as well. I mean, just really wonderful. I love my editor. I love CB, everybody that I interacted with. I had a story. This story is a story that I've had since 1992. It would have been something I got to probably in year 3, and it was a story I had filed under 100 Cables. It's called 100 Cables. Of course, the fact that Cable was established from the minute he appeared, he was coming out of a portal. Thing is, Cable, being a time traveler, I love time travel stories. That's why I made him a time traveler. That's, the entire justification for him coming here in the present is to stop all of the horror that he's seen in the future. So I eventually wanted to do all these different versions. And so what you're getting in X-Force Killshot is kind of the 5 cable. It's it's not 100 cables, but we can build up to that. We're doing 5 different teams, 5 different cables overall that you see throughout the course of the story. And the mission is very simple. And from the beginning, I just said, look, this is going to be the opening 18 minutes of Saving Private Ryan. This is the mutants storming the beach at Normandy. You had to take the beach before you advanced, and they have to take the asteroid and defeat Strife. And that's why kind of every page is a minute. It's like a 33-minute adventure. So again, I think the concept fit the timing. There is no regular book that features this cast of characters right now, which I think makes it more special. And yet we were able to do some kind of new, we folded in some new twists in there as well. So, I mean, that's my long-winded answer as to why, when they asked me about Deadpool, I pivoted to, we're doing X-Force too, right? And they complied. And like I said, a book that isn't even on the schedule is doing exceptionally well for them. So I think which speaks to just right time, right place, these fans. I mean, even this style of storytelling, it was deliberate to go big, splashy, action-packed the whole time, because this is what X-Force was about.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even from you, like, kind of riffing off stuff that took place in X-Force 1, specific panel structures, the scenes and stuff,
right.
You played off that. I mean, the book was awesome. I got a chance to, get to read a copy ahead of our conversation, and just phenomenal. It's just, it had that same level of excitement that I had when I read the original X-Force #1, and I just think that it seems like now, right, is kind of almost like a renaissance for the 90s. I mean, you've mentioned it many times on Robservations. Like a lot of the kids from the 90s are grown up, and now they're able to get stuff maybe they couldn't get when they were a kid, because they didn't have the money.
Yeah.
Why do you think that all of it, out of nowhere, kind of, like, I noticed it more during the pandemic, a lot of the Facebook groups I'm a part of, but this excitement surrounding the 90s characters and the 90s comic books, and the creators, too, from the 90s?
Well, so when I say on my podcast that the 90s kids have come of age and they have spending power, I'm telling you what's being told to me, to my face, at store signings, at conventions. The pandemic really had died down early in the summer. I mean, for instance, I got and did a very aggressive leg of Florida on July, like right after the 4th of July. And then 3 weeks later, they went into their crash, like, that lasted through August. But things had kind of really calmed down, and people were coming out, and everyone was in Florida. I mean, I did 4 appearances in 3 days. I met a ton, just a ton of fans. And again, they're telling me this. And I went to Arizona, and I met, I hadn't been there in 5 years. And I've done here in Southern California. I went to New York for, all 4 days of New York Comic Con in October. And I'm telling you that they're standing there with their 9-year-old, with their 10-year-old, and they're telling me, I'm a stockbroker. I am a banker. I, have a car dealership. I mean, they're all telling me these different stations in life. And look, just as I value so much of what I loved as a kid, because it made me feel a certain way. I mean, that is, on some level, there's a pull to nostalgia. Now, I don't really think we recognize that when we like a bad song, we realize that's kind of a bad song, but it was fun to listen to. Okay. I may listen to, a Twisted Sister cut, but I'm not going to a Twisted Sister concert. Okay. Apologies to Twisted Sister. They're great. But, but I grew up listening to the Eagles, And every time the Eagles come to town, I see them multiple nights because those songs are great. The quality is great. Just like I view the X-Men in a certain way that Byrne Austin X-Men, it's because it was executed at a very high level along the lines with Frank Miller's Daredevil and Walt Simonson's score. And look, we weren't wonders. We sustained. Me and my peer group, we I'll say ran the tables of the industry for a good 9 years, almost a decade. And that's a long time to build up a relationship with a fan base. And then, again, the fact that I had to say to Marvel, we're going to celebrate the 30th X-Force, right? I mean, it wasn't part of their plans. Next thing you know, they're selling 100,000 of this one shot. Okay? So, it'd be one thing if I said, hey, let's do this, and they're like, oh, Rob, we couldn't give these things away. But this has turned out to be, there's a lot of excitement around this book. And then fully coming full circle, I have an art dealer. I gave him all of my preliminary sketches, my layouts, my original art. The art drop was supposed to be tonight. Well, we had to inform everybody that last Friday, because we sent out the mailer that it was happening, last Friday, and a single buyer bought every single page and every sketch and every cover. They're gone. And so I guess I'm living in the reality of the 90s kids are of age, and they are buying what they like and what has meaning to them. And it shouldn't be surprised. A couple years back, right? Jurassic Park came back, roared back to the top. I saw today there's a new Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I mean, you can file it under, I guess, everything old is new again. So I mean, I think there's part of people reclaiming their childhood. But I also believe that, and you can quote me on this, I mean, I think these characters' best stories are yet to come.
I definitely think that this was probably one of my favorite uses of these characters in quite some time. I mean, I definitely think whenever you work on these characters, it just feels like it feels right. It feels exactly how these characters should be interpreted, both visually and with story wise. I love the choices that you picked for the different teams. You definitely, I would say, kind of leave it a little open-ended, right? Like, I mean, it definitely has a definitive end, but is there any plans to visit any of these characters again?
So Marvel will have to let me know that. If it's nothing official, I'm actually in the middle of doing the sequel to Deadpool Bad Blood. I'm about 40 pages, I guess 2 issues worth of material for the sequel to Deadpool Bad Blood. And look, Major X, who has a featured role in X-Force, and he should because he's the son of one of the Cables, and that Cable's relationship with Storm in that universe, that variant. But the Major X story was continued from a Wolverine story that I did in the 2000s, like literally 2000, Wolverine 154, 155. So the Wolverine story carried into the Major X story in 2019, which is now carrying into X-Force. I will find a way to give you more of this story. I think probably, Marvel won't be opposed to doing something more official, but I can't speak for them. The book hasn't launched yet, but like I said, it's already selling out, and it hasn't hit the shelves yet, so I feel really good about it. But, like I said, no one's going to love these characters more than me. I mean, I am the day one. I am the guy who submitted all of them. I said on my podcast, I sold these characters to Marvel. That is exactly. Anyone who tethered onto the character afterward only did so because they existed, because I introduced them, because I was young and I was hungry and I needed my book to compete with the other titans of the industry. And Wolverine and Spider-Man and the X-Men were big top sellers. And I knew I couldn't pull it off with Richter, Boom Boom, and Sunspot. God bless them, okay? I needed some new toys. And so I reached into my sandbox. I did that transaction. I did that deal with Marvel. I did my little equity sharing and was off to the races. And I said, I built a forest. It's way beyond, it's way more than 1 tree or 2 trees. And, I just think, very exciting. And here's the deal, man. I get a kick out of this. I really thoroughly, more than ever, and I've always loved it, but I have never loved making comics more than I do now. I think it shows because I have been, blown away by the amount of people who have reached out to tell me how much they love this. And, like I said, maybe it's the right book at the right time, okay? So maybe it's going to remind people of what's possible, because I'm going to tell you this, my friend, it was the last couple days in July when I started this, because I knew I was going to go on about a 17-day vacation, of which I took pages with me and I drew them on vacation. I had probably 7 pages while we were gone. So then I just had to wrap it all up the entire month of September. But the day I started, I was talking to a buddy of mine. He asked, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm starting this X-Force 30th project. I'm working on the first page right now." And he said, "Hey, how's it going?" And I said, "It's going great. I'm Jack Kirbying the shit out of this thing." and then I said this statement that I still can't believe I said, but I said, "I'm sucking the marrow off Jack's bones and I'm spraying it all over these pages." Because I think I was feeling it. And he's like, wow, okay then. And I'm like, wow, did I just really say that? But I did feel like Jack came upon me and was like, let's do it, dude. I've always been inspired by Jack and his bold pages, layouts, and so I just decided to approach this book the way I approached the work that I did early on, and make it very much about action and movement. The story is moving the entire time. I would say in some cases it moves more than 2 or 3 books I could go pick up off the rack this week. And that used to be what you expected out of a Marvel comic, to be honest. That's what Frank Miller gave me. That's what Walt Simonson gave me. That's what John Byrne gave me. Kirby gave it to me. And that's what I feel like my peer group excelled at. So when I say right book, right time, I just think I knew what I was doing, and I did second guess, like, maybe this is the totally wrong approach for this. Maybe you should have them all sitting around a table talking to each other like you see in so many comics. Maybe they should be discussing the fate of mankind over dinner. And obviously I was like, no, that's not what I want to do. I want to do this. And I did this. And here we are, and I hope people enjoy it.
I mean, like I said, I dug it. I know everybody that's your fan of yours is going to dig it. I mean, it definitely has, it's your signature style. You got a ton of action, dynamic scenes, and it is something I think that's missing from current comics. We don't see enough comics like this being produced, for sure.
Lots of shoulder pads, lots of vacuum cleaner guns, and tons of swords. Okay. Swords and guns. That's my mashup, baby.
Well, and I want to touch on something you said too. You talk about, how excited and jazzed you are still about making comic books. And I think that ties in perfectly into your podcasting. I think that when you started doing Robservations over the pandemic, it instantly became mine and tons of other people's favorite podcasts. And I do my own podcast. And I love listening to yours. The excitement that you share for comics, both old, and new, and even sometimes the new stuff, just it comes out through your voice and your passion for the medium. I wanted to ask you a little bit about Robservations and your decision to finally make that step into doing it.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's so funny. I sent my son a text this morning because there is no Robservations without Chase Liefeld, because I kept talking about it, and he said, Dad, he's very technically proficient, and he said, Dad, I can hook you up with this. Look, this is what you need. And it was the pandemic, and he goes, Dad, look, let me order it. Give me your card. I'm going to get curbside. I'm going to go pick it up from Best Buy. I'm going to bring it back up. I'm going to set it up for you. And that's all you need. So, and here's the program, and run it through this. And he set me up. And I mentioned him on the podcast that's up today, that like it was just a longing I had to express my love. I kind of treat Robservations like it's my journal, my oral kind of history, and my diary. So you're really kind of getting inside my mind. And if people don't mind that, then hopefully they're having a good time listening to it. But I've always told people, I'd rather read a good comic than watch a movie, watch a TV show. It's my preference. It's my preferred escapism. So, of course, I want to talk about it. And I went, I got into this business as a kid. I saw a lot before then. I met a lot of great people, met a lot of great talents, and then was able to contribute to the industry and make comics. And it's just very exciting. But my the thing that I have been, I guess, heartened by the podcast, I'll be honest, it took me back. Like, I was taken aback when I did that Florida leg, and everybody mentioned the podcast to me. And I wasn't used to talking about it ever because I hadn't really been out. It was kind of the first time I was aggressively doing store after store and in a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and 2 on Saturday, 1 on Friday, 1 on Sunday. It was just, and then I go to Arizona and people talk about it, and then I go to New York and people talk about it. So it's great that people are listening. And the thing that I think people appreciate that matters to me is, and one of the impetuses was I have a family member, a younger family member, who is not as well sourced, and I think gets bad intel on the internet, and appreciated when I would source for him information. And because I kind of have an encyclopedia of interviews and magazines, and I can bring what they call the receipts, right? I can tell you, I'm going to read out of this that was published in 1986, and these are the words of this creator right here, and this is what he was thinking when he did this and created this. And there's a lot of people who don't have those magazines. You can't really buy them at comic stores. I've realized how valuable these resources are. Having every Amazing Heroes that was ever published, having the comics journals, and being able to give you insights into creators. And so that is a gift that I can share with people, as well as my own experiences, of which, while we're talking about the podcast, I'll have some stories people have never heard. For the 30th anniversary of Image Comics, I've held some of those back. Why wouldn't I? When Image turns 30, that's when you're going to get some really entertaining, crazy stories and learn maybe how ruthless and competitive it was. And it was more ruthless and competitive than you already believe it to be. So that's just, like I said, it's kind of become a journal for me. And so I hope, and I do feel a great responsibility to get information right. And it's coming up on 2 years here. So far, so good. And you flatter me. Thank you very much. I'm so glad you enjoy the show. I really do.
I mean, yeah, from your recommendations of stories to, like you said, you bring the receipts for everything, and it's clear, there's never any pushback, like with stories that you're telling, whether you're reading it from a magazine or from your own memory, nobody's ever questioning it, which means that you're spitting truth, No,
I really am. I mean, that is 100%. That's the thing. Like you haven't, no one's disputed this crap.
Yeah.
Because I am sharing facts.
I mean, that's what I love about the show, because you get it's like inside baseball, but for comics, like you get that, but then you're also talking about older stories, older runs in comic books. And I call it to some of my friends at the shop, the Liefeld effect, where some of the stories you were talking about in the podcast, sometimes those end up hard to find, even on eBay. I don't know if you've noticed that or not, but it's kind of like what the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel does. I kind of compare it to that. I wanted to ask you, though, when you're coming up with episode ideas, because you cover a wide range of stuff on the show, how do you decide what to talk about? Is it something that just comes to your mind maybe that morning you're going to record, or do you plan stuff out?
I try to plan in advance, but I think, to be honest, there are weeks where I just go, what the hell am I talking about this morning? And I'll delay for an hour, and then I'll be like, well, the one thing I keep threatening is the day that I give you a full episode on John Buscema's Weird World, I'm passionate about it. I want to talk about it, but it's kind of the one thing I'm holding in the back. It's fantasy comics. I don't think people love fantasy comics like I do. So I kind of work them in intermittently. I don't want to but I will sharing the feuds, because I realize feuds have really enhanced and ruined some comics I love, and then realizing that there's a lot of feuds in this industry, and And, you know, sometimes I just need to do a little more research. Like recently I did one on Wally Wood and Stan Lee and the controversy over Daredevil, and I felt like I had gotten enough information that now I could really present a really strong case for how Wally Wood felt. And got the interviews, got the quotes. And so, I mean, but there's sometimes like I'm building up. That Weird World episode is coming though. And honestly, I did an entire episode on ElfQuest that I had been pushing off for like 6 months. And then ElfQuest fans were out of their mind. They were so happy. And maybe somebody, you know, who had never heard of it, discovered it. So it's a little bit of both, man. I mean, I generally, the day before, or like when I went on vacation this summer, I did book about 5 in advance, and then one I did while I was in Italy, and it really was more topical. It was really kind of what was going on in comics at that time. So it kind of changes, you know. I mean, if I think something is coming up right now that deserves, you know, discussing, but of course I'll go like, oh, the Dune movie is coming out. Well, one of the best movie adaptations ever was Bill Sienkiewicz's Dune adaptation. So, you know, I'll talk about that then. You know, so it's a mixed bag. It's definitely a mixed bag. People want me to do more interviews when I feel that I knew Eric Larson was a great interview. I knew it. It took me about 6 weeks to get him to commit, and then we ran with it, and it was good. I think some interviews could get very contentious with me, so I avoid them at this time. So, you know, because I'm going to tell you, I've had some, privately, I've had some people chew me out. And, you know, I'll go to the restroom and suddenly I'm looking at an angry text. And I've hurt some family members' feelings. And, you know, so you go, well, yeah, maybe kind of steer away from this one for a while because this is upsetting people. Look you're getting some good stuff here. You're getting some good stuff. So that's the long-winded answer to your very simple question.
All right, cool. Well, I mean, I'm super stoked for the show. I mean, I listen to it religiously every week. I never miss an episode.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's seriously, it's the best comic book podcast, I think. I mean, you cover such a wide range of stuff that even as a comic book fan for, you know, I like to think I know a lot, but I don't know everything. So you constantly are turning me on to stuff. The few episodes are awesome. Just the behind the scenes, awesome. All the comic books you've been putting out recently. The Snake Eyes Dead Game was phenomenal.
Thank you.
Yeah,
you're very
X-Force.
kind. Here's what I want you and your audience to know. The best is yet to come because I have definitely been holding a lot of stories, not image stories. A lot of stories I've been holding because I know once I tell them, it's kind of, you can't unnuke the bridge. And that radiation will carry. But, you know, it's going to be a time and a date where I go, yeah, I don't give a shit anymore. So it's time to tell these stories. And those are going to be the ones that I think are going to be the most entertaining because I wouldn't tell them if they're not entertaining. The primary reason to tell the story is the entertainment factor. And I'll tell you, like, I did not know people would be as crazy interested in. And then I realized, wow, what are you doing? Like, of course they would. This is just because I've known this story for 25 years, and I'm speaking about the Heroes Reborn stuff. That I underestimated how like juicy people viewed that. And again, man, that's all stuff that was just matter of fact, that was behind the scenes, that had been behind the scenes for all these years. But I didn't feel like it really hurt anybody because I don't want to hurt anybody. But some of these stories will you know, as the years roll by, and look, maybe I'm on the precipice of such a big deal that I may close on such a big deal that I may go, that's it, I can start talking now, I'm good. So, Robservations, we're just scratching the surface, I can assure you.
Awesome. Well, I'm super stoked for it, and I'm super stoked for more comics from you. Before I wrap this up, I was wondering if you could maybe talk or, you know, maybe tease a couple things that you got in the works that you can talk about.
I do have a top secret project that I think will shock everyone that you'll know when it arrives, and I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
Otherwise, with all of the Image 30th anniversary, my attention is going to be on giving those characters the love they deserve. Specifically, like Prophet, Bloodstrike Brigade, Evangeline are in the mix. And then I got to tell you, there's some brand new stuff I have. I mean, I am really excited to show off a whole bunch of new material. And 2022 should be as good, if not better, than 21. And I had the best 2021, so I'm really excited.
All right, cool, man. Well, I'm very excited to see all this stuff. And, again, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to chat with me. And I'm really hoping we can do another one of these again in the future.
Hey, I'd love to. Thank you for having me. This was a blast.